There are no doubts at all that President Bola Tinubu is a few hours from officially marking 1 year in office. What may be in doubt is how to fairly measure the performance of his cabinet. Well, tonight, Babajide Ogunsanwo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is here to share more insights about how much the president has achieved, especially with his 8-point agenda. Hello, Babajide. It's good to have you again on the news at 10.
Good evening, Anne.
Good evening. I mean, earlier this week, we recall some of the ministers presented highlights of their performance in the last 1 year. But the question now will be how accurate actually are the pictures that were presented by these ministers?
With reference to accuracy, there are perhaps 3 ways I would like to look at this. The first is to look at that report that was conducted by the NY, a poll at the end of 2023. NY conducted a poll and asked Nigerians, how satisfied are you with 2023? Now, the results of that poll showed that 66% of Nigerians said that they were not satisfied with 2023. The number 1 reason, hardship. So let's keep our minds on that. 66% of adult Nigerians saying they are not satisfied with the polls. Now, the second thing is to look at how popular are ministers, because the popularity of ministers is perhaps a proxy on how Nigerians understand what is going on in that ministry. And again, looking at recent surveys, clearly 3 names come out as names that some Nigerians recognize. Food security, pretty much when Nigerians were asked who is the minister in charge of that, most Nigerians still do not know. His name, Abubakar Kyari. Again, looking at those 8 points agendas of the president. However, top 3 names that Nigerians recognize among the ministers: Wali Edu, Mohammed Badaru, Minister of Defense, and Olubumi Tunji Ojo. So pretty much what we see is that majority of adult Nigerians still do not even know who these ministers are. And so the performance is another subject. The first is, do Nigerians know who these ministers are? And clearly we see that majority still do not know who the ministers are. Well, and perhaps the third and most important point on the minister's performance is this. Listen, and please listen carefully. The ministers, in presenting this, all did not present their reports in a standard template. In simple terms, there was no standardization in how ministries presented. And so they all presented in the ways that were best suitable to them. And so that made it clearly and very difficult to compare the performance of ministries, number 1. Number 2 is it was extremely difficult, based on their presentations, to compare their targeted expectations in terms of what were their deliverables versus what they actually achieved. And finally, perhaps what made these presentations, yes, a bit of information to the public, but what it made it so difficult to assess the ministers was that none of them said, this is how much I have achieved based on the deliverables expected from the president. And so there were presentations that were more qualitative than quantitative. No standard reporting template, difficulty in measuring their target versus actual, something we really see in the private sector was missing. And clearly what again was missing was how much did you achieve based on your desirable target and based on the president's desirable target. And so based on that, very difficult to really put all of those presentations in numbers, but what we know is some ministers clearly are easier for Nigerians to mention than a lot of other ministers.
All right, so now that we know the last 1 year, let's talk about the challenges that are likely to show up for the next 12 months, the challenges, the opportunities. What are you seeing so far?
I see a lot of opportunities if the president can see them, especially if we look at it from his 8-point agenda. It points to opportunities, it points to challenges, but perhaps opportunities for even him to become a legend. Let's start with the statistics on the 8-point agenda, where we are today and what the president needs to do, especially within the next 12 months. And if we take a look at those statistics beyond May 2024, these are the president's 8-point agenda, and let's take a look at every detail of it. Food security, one of the 8-point agendas. However, food inflation, currently is at 41%, the highest in recent history. Not only is food inflation 41%, if we look at food inflation from the last time the minimum wage bill was passed in April 2019, food inflation is in excess of 92%. And those are the facts from the National Bureau of Statistics. Food inflation compared to 1 year ago, 41%. Food inflation compared to when the minimum wage was passed, 92%. And within those food inflation numbers presents the president clear challenges and opportunities on the road to bring these numbers down. Poverty eradication. Based on the last report from the National Bureau of Statistics, there are 132 million Nigerians categorized as being poor. Poverty eradication is among the president's 8-point agenda. The challenge is, on an average, 10,000 new babies are born. So these numbers are growing really fast. Third, economic growth and job creation. The president's projection for economic growth is double digits. Currently, we are 2.98%, significantly below potential, significantly below the projections of the president. Access to capital, another point on the priority of the president. Recently, we have information that shows that just about 5% of Nigerians have 500,000 naira in the bank account. You heard me right. Just about 5% of Nigerians have 500,000 naira in their bank account. In simple terms, it means that 95% of Nigerians cannot even afford to spend 15,000 naira per day because within a month, all of their money in the bank will be gone. You heard me right. 95%. If 95% of bank account holders in Nigeria spend 15,000 naira per day, within a month, all of their money will be gone. Inclusivity for youth and women. The challenge is we have 120 million youths in Nigeria. Ordinarily, what we should be talking about is the youths that should be talking about inclusivity for non-youths, because the youths represent the majority of Nigerians. And so we should be a country whereby it's the youths that should be talking about how do we include non-youths. However, we find ourselves in a position where we are talking about inclusivity for youths in a country where the youths are the majority. Improving security, another agenda on the list of the president. Based on the Global Terrorism Index, even though Nigeria's security situation is improving, they still say that Nigeria is ranked 4th amongst the most terrorized countries in Africa. The president has to do all within his powers to get Nigeria out of the top 10. Promoting fair play among businesses, strengthening the rule of law, another agenda for the president. However, on the ease of doing business, Nigeria is ranked 131 out of 190. We're in the bottom 32%. And finally, the boogeyman, fighting corruption. However, Transparency International, which is the world's barometer for measuring corruption, say Nigeria's current corruption score is still 2.5 out of 10. And in the last decade, we haven't really gone beyond 2.5, 2.7 to 2.8.
Okay. But if I let you go, I mean, I'm curious, I'm sure a lot of people are also. Is there any opinion poll concerning job approval rating for the president in the last 12 months in office? So
a lot of companies are doing polls. Factbox is conducting some polls. NY are conducting some polls. They conducted that last poll that showed that last year 66% of Nigerians surveyed said they were not satisfied with 2023. But perhaps the most important poll is what exactly, for the president to remember how he won the election, because that clearly will let him know what the years, especially what the next 12 months could look like. Again, I talk about food and looking at the inflation numbers, especially food inflation, when they say a hungry man is an angry man, and looking at food inflation numbers, we clearly know that the inflation indicator is also a measure of an anger indicator. Let's take a look at that final data in front of us that allows us to clearly know how satisfied are Nigerians. How did the president win? In the Northwest, majority voted against the president. In the North Central, majority voted against the president. Same thing happened in the Northeast. Across all the 6 regions, it was only in the Southwest that the president had more votes than the opposition. However, the president, despite this abnormal situation, was able to be declared the president. What do these numbers mean? It clearly shows that the God of politics is with Asiwaju. However, what Nigerians are asking is, will the angels of economics stand by him within the next 1 year?
All right. Thank you very much. We'll definitely find out that answer. But thank you so much. Babajide Ogunsanwo, founder of Leadership by Data, and of course, Channels Television.
And surely Wednesday we'll be digging deeper into a lot of this statistics.
We definitely will. May 29. Thank you once again.